Prepare your wallets, for the Steam sale has begun. Of course, it began, I think, at midnight last night, so we actually have quite a few deals to discuss. I'm, of course, going to be mostly focusing on the deals that just changed at 6 o'clock UK time, but I will go over the previous day's deals, as well, of course, a quick nod to the flash deals. So, let us dig into the deals for June the 12th. Now, of course, I'm mostly going to be focusing on the games that I've actually personally played. I will discuss the other games, of course, but I won't really go into too much details. It would be weird to try and give opinions on a game I've never played. But I will begin with Child of Light, which is a very, very good deal indeed, as it is 75% off, making it £2.99. So it's not a bad deal at all, and that's $3.74. So what can I say about Child of Light? Well, it is by Ubisoft, but it is very much done in an indie style, meaning it's side-scrolling, done with a kind of really very unique kind of watercolour-ish style, and it's kind of done in as if you're playing a fairy tale. You're a princess who gets trapped in what seems to be some sort of dreamland, and you go through helping people as you try to escape and figure out what exactly is going on. In terms of the gameplay, the battles are turn-based, but with some interesting twists where you can actually interrupt an enemy's attacks. You'll kind of have a queue where you can see along the bottom of the screen what attacks are coming up next, when your enemies are going to attack and that sort of thing. And you can actually interrupt enemies' attacks and have yourself interrupted, which will interrupt the flow, and adds an interesting mechanic as well. And I would definitely recommend this. I've played a fair bit of it, and it is very enjoyable, very unique experience, and actually one of Ubisoft's stronger releases recently. And when it's so cheap, as I said, £2.99 or $3-ish, I can't remember exactly the dollar price, but I just said it, so I'm sure you can skip back a bit. It is definitely worth a look-see if you're into something a bit unique, and something very different from Ubisoft, of course, are usually AAA. Moving swiftly on to Wasteland 2, which is 50% off at £14.99 or $19.99. I feel like this game needs no introduction, as of course it was a very successful Kickstarter, but it is very much a sequel to a classic, and it is a CRPG. And you have a team of characters which you control, and you can view them from a sort of top-down-ish perspective, issue commands, tell them where to go, what enemies to kill, what abilities to use, that sort of thing. So, very old-school style of gameplay. I did actually cover this when it was still in beta. I will link that video in the description below this video. If you wish to give it a watch, I suggest you do so if you're a little bit unsure about the gameplay. But if you played Wasteland, you'll know what to expect. And if you're after a more old school RPG experience, like say for example the original Fallout, then Wasteland 2 is 100% worth your time, especially at this reduced price. Next up on my chopping block is probably one of the best deals. There's a lot of franchises available today, and this one is the Hitman franchise, which of course needs no introduction. Many of you have probably grown up with Hitman and seen it evolve and change, and pretty much the entire library is heavily reduced. You've got Codename 47, 80% off, 99p. Hitman Contracts is 99p, 80% off. Blood Money is £1.39, 80% off. Sniper Challenge is £3.99, 80% off. And Hitman Absolution, which of course it was only released back in 2012, is £2.99, 80% off. And in terms of dollar prices, Absolution is $3.99, or you can get the whole collection for £5.99, or in terms of dollars, you can get it for $7.99, which is pretty crazy considering you get 5 games for that price. What 5 games? You get Hitman 2, Silent Assassin, Blood Money, Codename 47, Contracts, and Sniper Challenge. So, a very nice deal indeed. And of course, if you like Hitman, or perhaps have been curious about Hitman, especially Absolution, definitely worth a go, I would say. And we shall remain in the theme of franchises for a moment as we discuss the Wolfenstein franchise. Now, this is actually going pretty far back, as you do have Wolfenstein 3D, Return to Castle Wolfenstein, and of course the more modern ones of the New Order and the Old Blood, which was only released literally a few weeks ago. And the deals here are kind of crazy as well, and there's a little pack as well available. So Wolfenstein 3D is basically free at 74p, 75% off. Spear of Destiny as well is here, £1.49, 50% off. Return to Castle Wolfenstein is £1.49, 75% off. But I'm sure most of you are more concerned with the newer ones. How much is the New Order, for example? Well, I'm actually really tempted by this one. This is the most tempting game for me at the moment. It's Wolfenstein The New Order, which is 75% off, making it £8.74 or $14.99. And the Old Blood is 50% off, $9.99 or £7.49. Not as good a deal, excuse me, for the Old Blood, but it did come out fairly recently, so it's not exactly a shock to say that it isn't as reduced, and it's of course not as expensive as the New Order full price. Full price the New Order is £34.99. So a very nice deal for the New Order, and of course it is very much a old school FPS with a few modern twists, some crazy set pieces, some tight old school FPS gameplay. I mean, you can dual wield shotguns, assault rifles, pretty much anything you want in the game. It has, you know, it's the whole Nazis thing done, it absolutely balls to the wall, everything turned up to 11 in terms of ridiculousness, and it's just all out hectic fun. And anyone who remembers the first person shooters of old should definitely check this out. You all know the New Order, you don't need me to tell you what the New Order is. You've probably seen lots of gameplay, it's been out for a while now. But if you want some old school FPS action, you cannot do any better than the New Order, at least in terms of more modern releases. If you've already played Shadow Warrior, then go play the New Order, and it's a very good price indeed. And our last franchise that I actually have information on from personal experience is the Witcher franchise. Now you can get the entire trilogy pack for £47.44. That's not that much of a reduction, to be honest, only 27% off. But of course each of the individual games is actually reduced, so to be honest, if you only need one game, it's definitely cheaper to just buy the one game. Now the original Witcher is 85% off, making it £1.04. or $1.49, so very cheap. Witcher 2 Assassins of Kings Enhanced Edition is again 85% off, making it £2.24, so they're basically throwing that at you, or it's $2.99. Now The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt is only 10% off, but what did you expect? It only came out on the 18th of May, it's £44.99 or $53.99. So not much of a reduction there, to be honest with you, but as I said, what do you expect? It's probably going to be the next Steam sale that we really see a decent reduction on that. Now, The Witcher as a franchise is of course an RPG, and it is kind of known, especially for The Witcher 1 and 2, for being pretty damn punishing, mostly through the lack of a proper tutorial. They actually had to add a tutorial to Witcher 2, and even then the tutorial was kind of lacking, to be honest with you. It wasn't really that great, kind of failed to explain itself clearly and concisely in my opinion. Witcher 3 Wild Hunt did much better than that with that, in my opinion. That's one of the things I noted in my first impressions review that I did. And if you want a very solid RPG experience with, of course, characters, dialogue trees, and actual choices making actual differences to the story, quests, and just a huge experience that is going to keep you occupied for a long time, The Witcher or The Witcher 2 is definitely a solid choice. And I've played quite a bit of The Witcher 3 and a little bit of The Witcher 2. I do actually own The Witcher. I bought it on Steam sale like 3,000 years ago, but haven't actually played it. But yeah, it's definitely worth playing through this franchise if you haven't already. It has, of course, become a monolith in and of itself in terms of a franchise, and rightly so. Let's move away from the franchises for a minute as we wrap up the last of the games that I have a decent amount to say about. We have, of course, Portal 2, which, to be honest with you, shouldn't need much introduction. It is, of course, the very successful sequel to the awesome Portal, and pretty much continues the storyline. It is £3.74. We can buy the bundle for £4.49, so perhaps if you're a freak of nature and haven't actually played the original Portal at this point, you can buy it as well. In terms of the US price, it is $4.99 for Portal 2 or $6.24 for the Portal bundle. I have, of course, played both Portal games, and they are very solid puzzle games. Portal 2 added quite a few mechanics. It's not as strong in some places as Portal 2. The storyline isn't as good in my opinion, but the gameplay is very much further fleshed out, as of course Portal 1 only really had a few mechanics to its name, whereas Portal 2 definitely adds a few more bells and whistles and is a nice continuation, and of course has the whole co-op thing as well. So you guys know what Portal is, it doesn't need much introduction, so if you haven't already played Portal 2, this is a pretty damn good deal, you're not going to get much better. And we're kind of moving into unknown territory here as we go to discuss Starbound, which is available for a grand price of £8.03, making it 33% off. Dollar price, that's $10 Now, this is by the same guys that did Terraria, and is still in early access. It seems to have been in early access, well, since forever, to be honest, and is very similar, in style of gameplay to Terraria. It's just pretty much Terraria in space with a huge amount of mechanics added. So saying it Terraria in space does not do it justice, to be honest. That is very much boiling it down way too basic. We haven't actually covered this one yet, as it's still in early access. We don't tend to do early access games most of the time. We do occasionally make exceptions, and I will be having a look at this game at some point, but yeah, it is very much a fleshed out Terraria with a huge amount of mechanics added, and of course improvements, very different setting, slightly different graphic style as well. And if you're interested in the early access, then why not save a little bit of cash, but you're probably going to be better off waiting for this. 33% off is a nice saving, but not amazing. Now, this is really going into unknown territory. We have this War of Mine, which is 60% off at £6.99 or $7.99. Of course, very much it's a very dark and depressing game. It is set in a war-torn country. You control a set of characters trying to survive. You are not a soldier, you are just civilians trying to survive, and things are suitably grim and has received pretty much renowned acclaim, and from what I've seen, it definitely deserves it, but I've not played it yet myself. Mountain Blade Warband is 80% off at £2.99. Dollar price would be $3.99. Haven't really played this one at all myself, to be completely honest with you, but it seems to be getting good reviews, overwhelmingly positive. So there you have it. Moving on from that, however, we are going to The Forest, which is also in early access, 33% off again, making it £7.36. Or in dollar prices, we have a deal of $10 for. Now, this is a horror game, and it also has survival elements. Now, this is in early access, so it is unfinished, so do keep that in mind. It does have very positive reviews, so if you're after a different horror experience while we wait for Soma to come out, then judging by the reviews and things like that, it looks like The Forest is actually pretty damn good, and I've actually been keeping my eye on this, and I'm thinking I'm going to have to check it out soon because it just seems to be getting claim across the board. We have Graygo, 60% off, £11.99, so a nice reduction, but it's still a little bit expensive for Steam sale. As you all know, the Steam sale can get ridiculously cheap. It's $19.99, so a little bit on the expensive side. You could get easily a few games for that in the Steam sale. This is not a game I have played anything of. It is a RTS in the classic 90s style and has received pretty damn good reviews. Total Biscuit has done a video on it, so the best place to check it out is probably his channel, to be honest. I haven't played it at all, so I can't comment. The Lego franchise, well, it's Lego, doesn't really need much introduction there, but I will give you a brief overview of the deals available. There is a huge selection, pretty much every game they've done here, including Lego Movie video game, which is £3.74. So you've got deals Jurassic World, which is only 25% off, going all the way down to the Lego Movie video game, £3.74. Lego The Hobbit is £3.74. It's a huge collection. Lego Worlds, which of course is only just announced, does not have anything off, unfortunately. So if you're waiting on that, then it's going to be next Steam sale probably. NBA 2K15, well, it's a basketball game. I don't play sports games, so I'm really not the right person to speak to, but it is £7.49 or $14.49. Sorry, 99 there. And we have Depth, where you play as a shark or a diver, which I have seen covered and it looks pretty damn fun, but I haven't actually played it. It's 60% off, making it £7.59 or $9.99. Whew, so that was quite a information dump. I'll give a quick nod to some nice flash deals. We have Magica $2.49, Honey Pop $4.99, Legend of Grimrock 2 $5.99, Crypto the Necro Dancer $7.49, Rogue Legacy $2.99, and Nidhogg $1.49. And yesterday's deals, well, the best deal is Don't Starve, $3.74. Hotline Miami 2 is reduced, but only by 33%, but given that only just came out, what did you expect? So, overall, a nice strong start. A couple of things tempted me, mostly Wolfenstein, as I discussed earlier. I was kind of hoping Hotline Miami 2 would go in sale, as I've been playing the first one a lot and I'm pretty much reaching the end, but it's not quite reduced enough just yet for me. But there are some very nice deals with a lot of recommendations to be had. The best one, to be honest, is the Hitman franchise. It's absolutely insane. Legend of Grimrock is a good price, as I said, £4.49. Wolfenstein is pretty crazy, and Child of Light. So those are my top recommendations for you today, and The Witcher 2 as well, just to throw that in there. Anyway, that's me done for this video. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.